There's a reading tonight at the library.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at setting that up. I can't believe it. I thought I was spastic, but there you go. Actually, I know how to do it.
I like to read,
Sometimes,
but not write.
sometimes
Not a
it's
good writer.
sometimes it's faculty.
Oh, really?
But it's maybe down.
Well, how you doing? Think about that. Exam before too long. I know it's an annoying thing to think about. But I figure we should finish this book here in this prayer or next prayer. So by the end of the week, we should be finished with what we're doing with this. So I think we could have an exam a week from today. What do you think? Not going to be too onerous for you guys? Can you cope with that? You do the weekend to kind of deal with it?
Sounds good.
Thursday won't be ready, I don't think.
Tuesday's
Give
fine.
people time, I know. Well, we can always put it off. I think, how's a week from today sound like for an exam for you?
How about Thursday?
They want Thursday, huh? Okay, well, we'll do Noelle a favor since she's the one who's, you look like you're tired today. What's the matter?
I'm tired.
You're tired? What have you been doing? You keeping the burning the midnight oil or something?
Yeah, I work late.
What you got in all those things you got there?
Oh, this is just for an event we're having later on.
Oh, I thought it was maybe some charity or something like that. You want to sit down here or something like that?
Yeah,
Sit down,
I'm
you're
going to
leaving.
sit. I just wanted to announce then that we had talked about having a study session. So I guess we'll have that next Tuesday.
That's why you want it next Thursday, okay.
Yeah.
So,
In the Nugget.
I apologize, the exam's a little bit supplementary late, but, you know, to keep it on some schedule here, but since we have an overriding voice behind us here for Thursday, we'll let her do her Thursday. And we probably appreciate all the things she does for us. At least I appreciate what she does for me. Maybe you guys don't have any feeling either way about that. Now, we'll talk more about the exam when we get closer. Those things constantly are talking about. It's not a very big deal. It's a couple of short identifications, make sure you're reading things. Like who is Arjuna or something like that. You know, a couple of 2 or 3 essays. Bring your books, notes on note cards. So there's no way that you can either forget what you need to know because you're going to write it down for yourself, or you don't need even a copy off someone else. Unless you're George Bush, maybe you might need some performance enhancer or something like that. I don't think that debate the other day was fair because it's on. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. I don't think that debate the other day was fair because he obviously looked tired. Somebody must have kept him up all night. They overstudied him. No, I think he overstudied him. They overstudied him. He looked completely like, didn't see himself. I mean, he's definitely just quipping and sort of being casual and easygoing. Because he likes to joke around and stuff like that. And someone put him in the wrong box there. His handlers, managers, really ought to be taken to the woodshed at the bank. Because, they certainly didn't do him any favors what they set up there for him. Because I really felt sorry for him for a chance.
Wasn't he in Florida that morning?
Was he
visiting Hurricane?
Something was. But he should have the Mason Park. I mean, he didn't have to go far. I mean, maybe he was going around, but
Whatever you want.
I think what happened there was that someone taught him a few things, and they said, "Now don't step out of this box. Just say these things because if you say anything different, you might say the wrong thing, and it'll be a real downer." So he just kept repeating the things that they told him that he was safe to say, and he didn't ever get out into any extemporaneous stuff. So because of that, he looked like a total villain. And yeah, I did see Saturday Night Live. I thought they were better 4 years ago with the Gore Bush thing, with the lockbox stuff. I thought they were pushing it to Saturday Night. But yeah, it was good fun. It was a fair presentation of two fools. So they took the whatever you're going to call out of them, and you see Saturday Night Live? Yeah. How many saw Saturday Night Live? And just you and me at the time. All right, well, enough on the political scene. You got to watch the debate tonight, you guys. Yeah, well, people say this guy Cheney, that, you know, this other guy is going to wipe the floor with him because he's a trial lawyer and all that stuff. But what people don't realize is that Cheney is a very sort of solid, heavy kind of like, you know, he never changes. So what you get is what you're going to get. And he's not going to get spooked one way or the other. He's going to be himself because that's what he is. And so he's not going to have an up moment or a down moment. It's not like Bush, you know. It's just going to be the way it is. And that's probably better to be that way, just to be the way you are. Have an actual personality, character that you are, and stick to it. Probably serve you better in life if you like that. So I don't think anyone's going to get upper or downer on him. It's just going to be, that's the way he's going to be. Okay, so it'll be interesting to see if the other guy, who's a hotshot sort of character, if he's going to be able to, you know, make this stolid sort of dull guy look, I don't know, like a stumble bum. I somehow don't think he'll be able to do that, but pretty interesting to see. Okay, even though the situation in Iraq obviously is a total mess, that doesn't say that it wasn't a noble effort to try to do something. It just says that Americans aren't good at doing things like that. If you guys had been around in the Korean War and the Vietnam War, you'd know that we're not good at doing this. We don't do this. We didn't even do the west of the United States very well, actually. Okay, where do we leave off here? You guys are tired today, I can tell. Nobody wants to get into any 10-rounders here. We ended at chapter 3. We didn't get to chapter 5, huh? Did we finish chapter 3? Yeah, we did. So let's take a look at chapter 4 then, shall we? Krishna talking. The two former narrators, I don't even remember their names, are out of the picture on this. So it's just, and this battle is supposedly on freeze frame. The battle is stopped, and these two guys have 18 chapters that they can discuss while the battle is waiting for them. In fact, I think by the end of this book, they're not even interested in the battle anymore. So it's not a very successful Hollywood film script, I don't think. The action died in the first chapter. But I don't know why they've been bothered with the action, actually. They might have just gotten, cut right to the chase and debate over the teacher and the student. I revealed the everlasting yoga to Yivi-san, the sun, the father of light. He turned it to Manu, the father of man. These are some ancient Hindu traditions about the gods and how sort of the knowledge of the gods came down to man. Very similar to Greek mythology. And this Manu taught the laws to man the way Moses teaches it in the Hebrew religion and so on. And then the kings and the holy men and so on. Now I'm revealing this yoga, eternal, this secret supreme, because you love me and because I am your friend. Now I don't think that they probably spoke in terms of loving, Christian love type of idea. That's seeping in here from the translator. Probably, he said, because you have regard for me or something, or you care for me, or you're a diligent follower of mine or something. And so Arjuna, as usual, is Carlos Castaneda here. Here's the subject of this particular lecture. Consider these to be lectures. I have been born many times, Arjuna, And many times have you been born. This is eternal recurrence. The Hindu idea of metempsychosis, if you like that word, transmigration of souls, rebirth. Now, I remember my past lives, and you have forgotten yours. Although I am unborn everlasting, contradiction there, I am Lord of all, etc., 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 and then he starts going on with his lecture. Well, that's already very confusing to anyone outside of Hinduism, isn't it? I mean, how come, I mean, has he proven that he's born many times? Once again, these are not logical points, he just sets it out, I've been born many times. I mean, what's the proof? Plato tried to prove in his dialogues, which are very parallel, I told you this, that he lived before, that there was, Plato also believed in transmigration of soul to some extent. You people who are philosophy students, do you recall how he tried to prove that? Anybody here read the dialogue? I think it was called the Meno, M-E-N-O, the Meno, where he had a student called Meno. All the dialogues are named after a student of Socrates. And Socrates takes him back to before he knew anything. And somehow, I don't remember I read it a long time ago, all the points about the dialectic, as it's called. Discussion in these dialogues is known even in modern legal parlance as dialectic. And he gets him to show that actually he knows things even before he didn't know anything. And the only way he could have known these things, Plato finally concludes via Socrates' voice, is that he remembered them from a past existence. That since a baby or something knows things, it's remembered from a past existence. So he tried to actually prove it logically. I don't think he succeeds. There are things you know that Plato was basically saying that you couldn't know through being taught it, therefore you must have known it from a previous life. What he's basically talking about is genetic inheritance, what we would call genetic inheritance. That animals, beings, you know, I mean, I have a cat and a bird and a turtle. And these things know things without being taught them. You know, they just know. Every dog you ever meet, yeah, but a certain kind, you throw a ball. I was just watching one in the park the other day. Someone threw a ball and the dog ran and got it. I mean, I don't think he was taught that behavior. It's just, you know, ingrained, as we call it, in the genes. I think that's what Plato was trying to make out was memory of past existence. And in some ways it is a memory of past. That you learn that activity through previous generations in your life. But that doesn't mean you existed before. It only means that information, and that's how we see it, was coded in your genes. Am I wrong there? Is that how we see it now? That there was some information that was coded in your DNA or whatever that you inherit? So anyway, Krishna here, he didn't even try to prove it, does he? He just says it. Well, when I was your age, I don't know if you like my personal stories, but I'll bore you with another one. I went to India. I was going to get spiritual enlightenment, I thought. And I traveled all the way to India when I was about 24, 25. I hitchhiked to India. I was in the sort of beat generation, sort of people who were on the road, sort of hitchhiked to these places. I hitchhiked across America. I'd never do it again. I'm glad I survived. I never forget the middle of Indiana at 3 o'clock in the morning with, you know, on the road there with trucks going by, and I got on through Ohio. I never met so many drunks and weird, crazy people that, you know, you sort of amazed that we could survive with these things. But I'll leave that for another day. I went all the way to India, and I met this woman who used to sit near Gandhi's tomb, and she was considered a saint in India. She was really a very nice person, and for some reason, I don't know how I got an introduction to her, but make a long story short, I know you guys may not like me, but she liked me. And I can't understand why she liked me, but she did. She had all kinds of reasons in her brain, because she said I brought her something from something that she was waiting for, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, all these people used to come up to see her, and they used to crawl up to her on their hands and knees and kiss her feet. And she had this skin, I don't know what you call it, disease or whatever, where she had blotches of discoloration all over her skin. What's it called as a name for it? Is it some, what?
Liver spots.
Is that what they call it?
No.
Well, I don't know, it was more than liver spots, I
That's
think.
psoriasis.
No, I think it was elephantiasis or something they call it. I forget what they call it. It was like, you know, discoloration all over her. Anyway, so I used to say to her, I said, there, why do you have these people come and kiss your feet? And she said, oh, it does something for them. I suffer. That was a pretty good answer, I thought. In other words, she didn't say, oh, I like it, like Jesus in the scripture. He gets angry when someone doesn't oil his feet properly, and Judas Iscariot complains, and then he says to Judas Iscariot, shut up, you know. But Judas Iscariot says you should have sold the ointment for some, given it to the poor. And Jesus says, the poor you have with you always, but you don't always have me. Well, I mean, I don't believe those episodes, but Jesus comes across as pretty egocentric there. You say, well, that's fine, he's allowed to be. No, the Greek gods were egocentric, and they expected homage of that kind. And someone wrote Greek god scenes into the New Testament presentation of Jesus. I don't think our Jesus. We would think that he should say something to the poor you have, but you always don't always have me, so like, you know, brushing them off. But on the other side, with this woman, when they came and did the same thing to her, kissed her feet and all these sorts of things, I thought her answer was pretty good. It does something for them, I suffer. In other words, she basically said to me, I don't like it. I don't like it, but I tolerate it because they need it. They need to adore somebody, basically, is what she would say. And I thought that was a reasonable explanation. So I asked her, I don't know if I asked her, but she said, you know, at some point told me, this skin disease that I have, you know, I suffer this. And I said, yeah, right. It's from a previous incarnation. I said, oh, yeah. She said, yeah, I was a prostitute in a previous incarnation, and this is my punishment. I said, how do you know that? How do you know that? I can remember it from the previous time. Well, at that moment, my my confidence level went down sort of immeasurably. And that's how I feel about this. I mean, these people claim that they can remember their previous lives. I'd like them to prove it. Not just to me, just prove it, period. You know. But anyway, that's their idea. And Krishna says it here. He says, I can remember mine because I'm better than you. Arjuna, you're too stupid. You can't remember yours, but I know mine. Because basically I'm God. I'm a supernatural, superhuman being. And so I don't even say, well, if he was born so many times and had so many past lives, I mean, how come he's a supernatural being? These things are not open to rational understanding and explanations. That's what I'm trying to point out. They may be true, and I'm not saying they aren't. But you have to, in the end, like many things in Christianity and other faiths, you have to accept them on faith if you're an adherent of that particular ideology. You notice that I'm not very adherent to anything. So I apologize to those who don't like me saying things about things that are dear to them. But, you know, only the people who are truly adherents can not just follow these things, but take them on faith. So some things I don't think you can resolve this situation. How come a supernatural being? And then the very next sentence he says, I am unborn everlasting. Well, which is it? If you're going to be reborn, I mean, if Jesus is a supernatural God, what's the difference if he goes on the cross or he doesn't? He's going to continue living anyway. If he's a supernatural God-like figure, which he ultimately seems to turn out to be. So what's he going through all this just to, kind of identify with mankind to a certain extent and the suffering that we have here, etc. And that he even, that's the way it's presented. But these beings, in the end, aren't really suffering. I mean, they are, but they aren't, because they know, they have confidence that they're going to live forever and they're supernatural. Anyway, I don't have the answer to those things, but forget Jesus. Let's stick to Krishna, which is why I said Krishna and Jesus do have a lot in common. But Krishna says, I was born many times, and he remembers his past, but then he goes on to say that he's unborn, everlasting, and, you know, basically Brahman. He's an incarnation of Brahman, of the divine principle, of the, you know, whatever it is that the universe constitutes. I am the Lord of all, and I can come into the realm of nature through my wondrous power. Well, it could almost be Jesus talking about. Not quite, but similar. Okay, so you say, well, what's the answer, Professor Eisenman? I don't have it. I'm just saying that's the doctrine, and you're going to have to work that out the best you can. He goes on. I don't know if they have an idea of salvation, as 8 puts it, but he says, the fulfillment of the kingdom of righteousness, I come to the world in the ages that passed. Again, I'm not sure they have an idea of the kingdom of righteousness the way Christianity has the kingdom of heaven and so on, but something similar is being said, and I'm not sure what the word should be because this is from Sanskrit, but you can kind of feel your way through this. He who knows my birth as a god, and who knows my sacrifice, when he leaves his mortal body, goes no more from death to death, he in truth comes to me. Well, again, very much like Christianity, except we don't have the multiple rebirths in Christianity. You have the single resurrection. But other than that, the idea that he who knows my birth as a god and my sacrifice by having come on this earth, he then will know everlasting life, if I want to be Paul, put it this in other terms. Here, goes no more from death to death, doesn't keep on dying, finally comes directly to me in a state, if you like, of nirvana. How many have come to me trusting in me, filled with my spirit, in peace from passion, fear, anger, made pure from the fires of wisdom? In any way, that men love me in the same way they find my love, for many are the paths of men, but they all end come to me. Again, devotion may be a better word than love there. More about this Karma Yoga 14. In the bonds of works I am free, because then I am free of desires. The man who can see his truth in his work, he finds freedom. So if you just concentrate on in your work, that's what it seems to be saying, you'll be free of all these things that the ancient Greeks thought were diverting you, and the Christians succeeding with ancient Greeks. The desires. How many deadly sins are there? 7, 10, 12, 50, 100, 7 anyway. All these things that are supposed to be distracting you from the good path. This was known in ancient times, and people found liberation in it. Do your work in life in the spirit that their work was done. That is more about this Karma Yoga. What is work? What is beyond work? Even some seers see this not correctly. I will teach you the truth of pure work, and this truth shall set you free. Again, that's right out of the New Testament. I don't believe he said just those words. The truth will set you free. It's in the Gospel of John. So I just have grave, you say, why are you giving us this one? Well, it's a book, and it's, you know, it's available. But I have grave doubts about this translator. Know therefore what is work, and also know what is wrong work. And know also the work that is silence, the mysterious path of work. The man who in his work finds silence, who sees that silence is work, this man in truth sees light, and all his work finds peace. And whatever work he does, such a man in truth has peace. He has no vain hopes, and so on and so forth. Who in all his work sees God, 24, he in truth goes into God, or Brahman, we should say. Who in all his work sees Brahman, he goes into Brahman. Brahman is his worship, Brahman is his offering by Brahman in the fire of Brahman. There are yogis who sacrifice as an offering to the gods, but others offer as a sacrifice their own soul in the fire of Brahman. Now, frankly, I mean, you say, what does all this mean? You got me, except that you have to be a yogi to have someone explain it to you, and even then you might not understand it, but it's good people don't understand things, because then they're sort of mystified by them, and they keep on striving to understand them, and it's always best to teach people things they can't understand, because then, you don't have to, then they can't have contempt for you. Because, the moment that they do understand what you're saying, often, like, familiarity breeds contempt, then they look down on it. As long as it's a riddle, then they still are struggling like a crossword puzzle to find the answer to the riddle. So often these religions depend on the fact that you can't understand them, and that you need a teacher, a guide to guide you through, the same way that Carlos needed his guide to guide him through the riddle of whatever that creature was he was supposed to be encountering. In this particular case, the thoughts are high-minded, so I personally don't have anything against them. I think they're useful, and they won't hurt you. They won't hurt you. They probably may even help you get through whatever you need to get through. So I don't think there's anything horrifying in it. These people are not going to lop someone's head off with a sword and decapitate someone just because they have a different view. I think these people are much more rational and harmless than some of these other groups who have religious inspiration. And they may help you get through the day, which is why people do yoga. So, this Brahman basically is the thing you want to be in touch with and be absorbed in, and this is mysticism in its classical sense. And insofar as you achieve this oneness with Brahman, you kind of disappear from the earth, and you disappear from your own being, and you disappear from the cycle of rebirth. That's basically the way it works. And therefore, work is one way. There's many ways, perhaps, of getting there, maybe through meditation. Is this about meditation? No, they don't mention meditation. They may come into meditation at some point, but at this moment they say, work in an even way. Keep yourself even, do your work, absorb yourself in your work, and in that way you will get this. Others, 30, practice abstinence. Neither this world nor the world to come is for him who does not sacrifice, and those who enjoy what remains of the sacrifice go unto Brahman. Thus, in my ways, in many ways men sacrifice, in many ways they go to Brahman, though that all sacrifice is holy work. Now he's talking about the ancient customs. I don't think he's really talking about sacrifice in the sense of suffering or renouncing things. He means that he recognizes the ancient gods of the Hindu tradition, and he accepts that that's another way of getting there. This too is holy work. But greater than that is the sacrifice of sacred wisdom. Anyway, this is a very mysterious chapter. Last line, kill therefore with the sword of wisdom the doubt born of ignorance that lies in your heart. So this wisdom that we hadn't heard much before, this is that, I think, what we were calling Sankaya earlier, kind of enlightenment sort of wisdom. And you can use this wisdom to, as they say, kill it with the sword of wisdom, the doubt of ignorance that you are born with or unfortunately have to bear. And in self-harmony and yoga, rise, great warrior, rise. So now the battle is not a battle anymore. It's a fight now against ignorance, doubt, insecurity, and other things that you're supposed to overcome with this discipline called yoga. Now, if you can write about this in your test, you're better than me, and I'm glad I'm not taking the test. Okay? 5, but you're the one who's trying to make sense of this. You say, well, you're not doing a good job. Well, no, I'm not saying I don't claim to be. I don't think anyone's ever done a good job. That's why people take their whole life studying. We're just looking at it in a superficial way. Others spend their whole life. So you say, well, what? If you could learn this in 3 weeks in a class, what are all these people doing their whole life studying it for? So I mean, don't think it's just because you looked at it, you understand it. That would be absurd. All you can do is point out some of the things that seem to be saying. And there is no right answer. Let's go to the next one, 5. we'll move along because these tend to repeat themselves, but we'll try to take a few more in detail. Renunciation now they're talking about. And also holy work. Tell me more about this higher path. Carlos Castaneda, the dumb student, asking Don Juan the question. Krishna, renunciation and holy work are paths to the supreme. But better than surrender of work is the yoga of holy work. Okay, this is a new, I'm not sure. Do you think all these lectures were written by the same person? Sometimes I wonder, because the subject matter seems to shift. It's like a sermon someone gave in a temple or in a shrine, and someone took it down, and then it became attributed to Krishna. And then 50 years later, some other famous yogi gave his sermon, and they wrote it down and attributed it to Krishna. It doesn't seem to me that the same writer is doing all of it. Now, I may be wrong, but there's slight differences in the way things are expressed that look like it's a different approach by somebody. Like this doesn't seem like the last one. And yet they're not going anywhere further. They're all going the same point. Oneness with Brahman. And getting in touch with the eternality of the universe. So, I'm not sure that, there's any development here. Okay. This renunciation that we're looking for in terms of holy work means you don't crave, you don't hate. That's pretty standard across most religions like Buddhism, Christianity, Socratic religion, and so on. Ignorant men, but not the wise, say that Sankhya and yoga are different paths. Here's that Sankhya, which really means not intellectuality, but renunciation. But he who gives all his soul to one reaches the end of both. Because the victory won by the man of wisdom is also won by the man of good work. So somehow the renunciation produces the man of wisdom. I'm not sure how that works. For renunciation is difficult to attain without the yoga of work. So these two things, the yoga of renunciation and the yoga of work, go hand in hand. 10. Offer all your works to God, throw off selfish works, and so on. Let's see, the man in harmony, 12, surrenders the reward of his work. So don't work for a reward, we've heard that. 16. Those whose wisdom is made pure by the wisdom of the inner spirit, their wisdom is unto them like the sunshine, and its radiance, in its radiance they see the supreme, the Brahman. This is pretty much like Plato's cave image that I told you about previously. They reach the land of the never returning. With the same evenness of love, they behold a Brahman who is learned. Now, a Brahman is not the same as a Brahman. A Brahmin with an I is a priest. So he serves Brahman. The Brahmin serves the multiple incarnations of Brahman. I guess that's why he's called a Brahmin. And I don't understand, why he brought him in at this point in his translation. But the main point is the evenness of love, the evenness of devotion, I would say. And here he combines the two. The man who sees Brahman abides in Brahman. Gone is his delusion. He is steady. All this produces, I think evenness is one of the main things that comes out of these lectures. Steadiness, evenness. Again, Bush could have used this the other night in his lecture. Could have used a bit of steady evenness. He should have done some yoga maybe. When pleasure comes, he is not shaken. When pain comes, he doesn't tremble. He shouldn't show any emotion. You shouldn't have seen those expressions on his face where he puckered up his lips and all that sort of thing. He'd have been in Brahman, and then he would have given this really sort of sophisticated and totally cool presentation. Yeah?
It seems to me though, because I was watching a channel where they showed both of them split screen.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
The people that put on the debate weren't supposed to.
No, I know they weren't supposed to do that.
It seems to me that Gary was You understand?
No, Kerry was smart. He just kept writing, even though I'm sure he wasn't writing anything, because someone told him, don't look at the camera, just keep writing like
To
this.
like move around.
Well, he was, yeah, well, you do move around, but he wasn't showing any facial expressions. He kept his face so poker. Someone had told him, yeah, they weren't supposed to show the split screen. In fact, they really screwed the expression. You know what? They screwed them if you want to be cool, you want to be straightforward about it. But someone told Kerry, don't look at the camera. And he would go, And if I had someone next to me doing that all the time, he would have spooked me, actually. What's he writing? What have I said is producing this great outflow? He's going to attack me some more. I would have been, whereas the other guy was standing there like, bad debate preparation, let me tell you. Someone dropped the ball. You guys, some of you do speech, right? Your debate people in speech have told you, don't do that. I'm sure they've told you, don't do that. It's insane. You lose your presidency on the basis of some stupid exposure of that kind. Someone should be fired. Maybe the president maybe say. Anyway, that doesn't say the other guy's any better. I'm not arguing one over the other, frankly. I just couldn't believe what I saw the other night. That was just like. Okay, let's go back to what we're dealing with. I just said these guys could use a bit of Brahmin. Kerry didn't have any Brahmin either. He was just scribbling all the time, so he kept his attention on his fountain pen. Same, I guess. He was doing karma yoga, I guess you'd say. He was working. He learned his lesson. He is not bound by things without, and within he finds gladness. His soul is one in Brahman, and he attains everlasting joy. Okay, we get it now. Okay, so if there's pleasure in the world, they also have sorrows. So, they bring like 23 storms of desire and anger, rejection, frustration. This man, he's that kind of person is not a yogi. Only the one with inner joy is a yogi, with inner gladness. The one who finds his inner light through, I guess, contemplation, concentration, evenness of temper, work. This yogi attains the nirvana of Brahman. There again is the nirvana of Brahman. Nirvana is a word meaning bliss, total enlightened bliss. He is one with God and goes unto. That's probably the most clear presentation of what they're at. He is one with Brahman, and he goes unto Brahman. So once they get into this Brahman thing, they're not hearing. So it's a way of, escaping suffering, because some of these parts of the world, life is suffering. There's not enough to go around. There's disease everywhere. The conditions aren't very good. You can't get into a shower and forget the world. I mean, I actually compare it to taking a hot shower. Once you're in the shower stall by yourself, everything is gone. You're just in there thinking. And you're in a little, room or incubator or something, and you're away from the whole world. It's something like that, but you're not in the shower. You're just in this shower of enlightenment. Yeah, I should be a yogi, you see. I could teach this. Okay. Holy men reach nirvana of Brahman, and I don't think the sins are the thing, but their shortcomings, perhaps. The fact that they are subject to these inadequacies and tempers and shifts of mood. Their doubts are gone, their soul is in harmony, and they enjoy it all. So, let's see. 28. With life and mind and reason in harmony, and with desire and fear and wrath gone, this sort of being, this enlightened person, keeps silent his soul before final freedom. He has attained final freedom. He knows me, Krishna. I'm also the man walking on earth who has been reborn many times. I'm also the God of the worlds, and I accept his offering, or the offerings of men. I am the friend of all. He knows me, and through me he makes me very much like Christ. Very much like the Christian idea of Christ. It's not my Christ. Well, it may not be your Christ, but it's more similar to the Christian idea of Christ than about anything else you're going to come on in most religions. That's what most people think they're getting when they go to Jesus. They think they're getting this eternal peace, don't they? So it's very close in terms of, it may not go the same way. Faith is the way it's supposed to work in the Christian view. Okay, here is this other thing. Sannyasi. I think this sannyasi is the person that renounces things. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's the one who practices sankhya, which is renunciation. Yeah. The sannyasi of renunciation is also the yoga of Buddha. I'm totally confused now, but anyway. Let's see. This is the guy who practices renunciation. Not a lot one has to know here, but here's a few things. And no man can be a yogi who surrenders not his earthly will. He reaches the heights of yoga when he surrenders his earthly will. He's not bound by earthly works. See if there's anything new we get out of any of this. 12. On that seat let him rest and practice yoga for purification of the soul. The mind is at peace. His soul is in silence before the One. 14. With soul in peace and all fear gone and strong in the vow of holiness, let him rest with mind in harmony, his soul on me, his God supreme. The yogi, who Lord of his mind ever prays, in the harmony of his soul attains the peace of nirvana, the peace supreme that is in me. Yoga is harmony. Again, it's repeating itself, but I think you slowly get the feeling of what they're after. Harmony of all things within yourself. No emotions out of whack. No, temper tantrums. No sadness. No, maybe some joy in the sense of enlightenment. Bliss, maybe, not joy. And a sort of a total peaceful bliss spreading over you. That then you don't exist anymore. You as a separate being don't exist different from this oneness of the universe that they're speaking of. Your soul is silent before the Lord. Again, it's a very nice idea, you understand, but I mean, is it true? Yeah, it helps probably you live, but is it really doing anything in the end? Except making you feel healthy? I mean, is it really, is this the way the universe really is? I don't know. I have no idea. And it's their approach. And 27. This joy supreme comes to the yogi whose heart is still, whose passion of peace, is pure from, I don't think sin is the right word, shortcomings, who's one with Brahman, with God. The yogi who is pure from shortcomings ever prays in this harmony, and the soul soon feels this joy of eternity, this bliss. This infinite joy of union with God, union with Brahman, again, oneness with Brahman, having attained a union with the principle of the universe. This nirvana state of total bliss. Again, total repetition, right? I mean, we've got almost a repetition now. 35. The mind is a restless thing. Krishna, Arjuna. Krishna talking to Arjuna. It's hard to train, but it's through practice, constant practice. That's what yoga is. Keep on practicing. Same as a runner practicing. You keep on practicing jumping over the vaulting horse. You keep on practicing throwing the forward pass to the receiver and so on. So slowly you keep on practicing shooting the basket. By this constant practice and repetition, you can attain freedom of the passions, and the mind can be trained. Is that true? Yeah, I think it can. I think it can. Disorderly people just have had a poor upbringing. No one's been around and really trained them, helped them out a little bit when they were young. They have to do it all themselves. They find that when they're grown up, they have to do it by themselves, and It's not easy if someone hasn't curbed certain things right from the start. People need help and training to overcome some of this disorder, put it that way. Because otherwise, things are very chaotic. So when the mind is not in harmony, this divine communion can't be achieved. But the man or woman who has a harmonious mind, he can strive and he can get there. So Krishna, be a light, line 39, unto me. And such people, Krishna says, this world doesn't come anymore, 40. And the man who does this kind of thing never treads the path of death. So once again, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, Paul says, I am no Christian. The aim is overcoming death always in many of these activities, in many of these religious pursuits. And death is something that weighs very heavily, as we know, on a lot of people, more as you get closer to it. You know, you sort of, when you're younger, you say, that's far away, I don't worry about that now. But, you know, the closer you get, the more you start to worry about it. And people trying to find a way out. This is one way that they've developed. Christianity is another way. So you don't feel death. 43, you begin your new life with the wisdom of the former life. There's that remembering the past that Plato tried to claim Socrates proved by his discussion with his students. And then you can start from there. Then this yogi, ever striving, 45, with his soul pure from evil, shortcomings, or whatever, attains perfection through many lives. If you keep on striving through these lives, you'll finally get there. Well, because the yogi goes beyond those who only follow the path of the austere or the wisdom of work. The greatest of all yogis is he with all his soul. I don't understand that, because that's already has become a little bit more Paul-like. His faith is coming to him, and he loves me. I'm not sure that's how that would have been put in the original. 7 talks about Om, which is this word that if you repeat like a mantra often enough, it orders your mind in some way. I am the taste of living waters, 8. I am Om, the sacred word of the Vedas, the previous literature. The Vedas were the previous literature. And a sound in silence. Again, Krishna holding forth on how wonderful he is. Line 24. They know not my higher nature, perishable and supreme, for my glory is not seen by all. So that's a lecture on Krishna's glorious super being nature. 8. Who is Brahman? Who is Atman? What is karma? What is the kingdom of the earth? Who offers the sacrifice of the body? So we're back to the beginning again. But I think 8 is basically where we can, well, there's more chapters here, but 8 is kind of getting us to close to where we need to be. Let's look at it again, if you don't mind. It's repetitious, I agree. Brahman is the supreme, the eternal. Atman is the spirit in man. Karma is the force of creation, wherefrom all things have their life. Now, I don't understand why karma is the force of creation, why it's also the works yoga. That is, I would need a teacher to explain that. All these points here, I think, are confusing, except getting up to line 8 or 7. Think me, therefore, at all times. Remember me and fight. We're back into the war again, but again, it's not clear what kind of fight we're in here. For if a man thinks of the Spirit Supreme, Brahman, or maybe that's Atman, with a mind that wanders not, because it has been trained in yoga, he goes to the spirit of life. So yoga again trains the mind to concentrate. And notice this point, line 10. In between the eyebrows, he goes to the Spirit Supreme, the Supreme Spirit of life. That's why they often portray a third eye in between the eyebrows. So there's another eye, the eye that views the Spirit Supreme, the eternalness of being. So you often see that third eye. Actually, even in the Masons have it, I think it's in our dollar bill even. That third eye comes all the way, I think, from here. And 13, remembering me, he utters Om. All the hippies and beatniks back in the 60s were going around saying Om all the time. I don't know if it got them anywhere. Most of them died off anyway. I hope it helped. The eternal word of Brahman. I don't want to say a bad thing about anyone because I may suffer the same fate, and I don't want to. I certainly don't want to cast aspersions on anyone who's passed out of this universe. If Om helped them, good. If it helped George Harrison, good. For people who were striving, I hope they found whatever it was that was supposed to help them get to. The eternal word of Brahman. By uttering Om, the eternal word of Brahman, you get to the path supreme. Om, 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 Om. Oops. Anyway, at least you're familiar with these things. For all the worlds, 16 pass away, even the world of Brahma, the creator. So Brahma is different than Brahman. Brahma is another variation of Brahman who's just the creator itself. But he who comes unto me goes no more from death to death. Come unto Jesus, you go no more from death to death. 20, beyond creation, visible and invisible, there is an invisible higher eternal. When all things pass away, that remains. I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. Beyond all this world that's expanding and collapsing, the Big Bang and everything else, obviously there's something else beyond all that. What it is impossible for us limited beings to probably even imagine or contemplate. And there may be billions of universes just like our own expanding and collapsing. We just may be one huge big star, or the universe itself may be one big star composed of all the particles we see as separate galaxies and things. So you have no idea how many parallel universes there are. But he says here, beyond all that, we're just limited little bug on one little part of it, like a flea someplace. So we can't possibly know what the real truth of the universe and existence is. We can only speculate. But he says, beyond creation, there is an invisible higher eternal. And when all things pass away, that stays forever and ever. That's probably close to some reality there. The invisible is everlasting. So that's what they're seeking. You get beyond all this, you get to that, and then they're going to be for sure safe. There's a reward, 28, that comes from the Vedas, the previous sacrifice literature about how these things were done in a ceremonial way, sacrifice. But a far greater reward is attained by the yogi, the new way of doing things, not the old way, the temple ceremony, who knows the truth of light and darkness and attains this everlasting being. All right, so these lectures are getting quite simple, aren't they? Just a few. So as I said, this book, I think, I'm reading it with you, but you probably could have read this book in an hour and a half. Doesn't mean you maybe understood it, but we're almost through it now ourselves. There's a few more sections here and a few more passages, and we're basically through this book. What should you do next? I want to look at Walt Whitman next, who doesn't think that the body and soul are different. American poet. So I kind of think it's sort of like, not that people follow his religion, but he represents a kind of civil religion in America, let us say. And he's also a very moving person. Lived during the Civil War period, went out to the Union battlefields, nursed the wounded. Saw Lincoln, loved Lincoln, absolutely loved him. As much love as you could get out of this particular document I have in front of us. He'll express that love, which is quite amazing. For us, I think, in these days, to know that someone actually loved the president. I mean, I don't think that anyone, from my experience, I don't remember anyone loving American food. Some people loved Eisenman. Nixon, I don't think anyone loved. Kennedy, a few people were impressed by it. No one loved Johnson. Ford, I don't think anyone knew he existed. Yeah, some people like Reagan, I think. But loving the president the way Whitman did is something beyond our understanding. So that's going to be interesting to read that there could be beings like that led the country, that people actually loved in a sort of high spiritual love of total adoration, maybe even idolatrous, if you want. So that's a good person to look at, and that's why I want to look at him, particularly after 9/11. I think it's really important because the religion he's expressing in his poems is the religion of America and freedom. America is basically God. And believe in America. I think many people in this country feel similarly, although they're disappointed now. Their ups and downs. So that's what I mean about American civil religion. Someone tries to express the belief in America and democracy as almost a religious belief. So what poems you should read in Whitman? You have it. I'm not letting you go yet. I'm just giving you an assignment so that you can get ahead. This will be not for the exam, but get on with this because I'll cut the exam off at this part of our meeting. I mean, we could really have the exam, Tuesday if we wanted to, but doesn't have time yet, so we'll wait. Song of Myself, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. See, how can there be any enlightenment in these poems? That's what's so amazing, there is. And finally, When Lilacs Last. This, how can there be anything in this poem with a title like this? There is, and you'll see it when you read it, if you haven't already read it. In fact, I think When Lilacs Last and the Door Are Blooming is probably, for me, and I'm just speaking for myself, not for anyone, it's probably the most beautiful poem I've ever read. In a modern sense, with a modern beat, a modern rhythm, a modern vernacular. A poem like that is beautiful. Yeah, it absolutely is tremendously beautiful. It was written right at the end of the Civil War when he celebrates all the dead of both sides. And he wants to give a sprig of lilac to the passing coffins of the dead. And it's an incredible poem. And also Lincoln has just been assassinated too. It's an incredible poem for American history, and the reason I read it is because I think every American should read it. You should have read it. If you didn't read it in high school, someone missed it. They don't like to read Whitman in high school because he was, they think he was gay. And he may have been gay. He was everything. I mean, he didn't care what sex you were. I don't think he wanted to kiss whoever he saw. So it wasn't matter if he was male or female to him. But I think that was the way America was back then on the road in those days. So, but they've been frightened of Whitman in high schools for that reason. But I tell you this, Clinton gave Monica Lewinsky a copy of a volume of Whitman to read as a present. So I don't think he gave it to her for nothing. And you say, well, why? Well, you'll see when you read it. It's interesting. So, that's what we're going to do next. And you say, well, is that all you want us to read in that? Whatever else you want to read in it too. Those are the ones I'm going to look at. I mean, that's why a book is for your own pleasure. You keep the book, hopefully. I've got all the books when I was at college still in my bookcase. Right? I keep the books one's whole life, one knows. And hopefully wouldn't have given you a book that you want to throw away or sell back to the bookstore. If I've done that, then I've failed. If you feel like going and selling this book back or something, Castaneda I can understand, but no one's going to give you very much for that book. But you might get a penny for it or 50 cents or something. But I hope that some of the rest of the books that you wouldn't feel the need to wish to sell back to the bookstore. My goal is if I have encouraged students to get books that they sell back to the bookstore, I've failed. And that it's not a book you want to keep your whole life, then I've failed. If it is, then I feel some success. So let's hope the books that you have. That's why I don't use a textbook, because I never saw a textbook that I wanted to keep my whole life. most of them you want to kick when you're done with them and throw them down the stairway or something and out into on the garbage box after about 5 years. You see them, I said, ooh, that's the textbook in that class. Get rid of it. So hopefully you won't think that. Even the Bhagavad Gita, I think, is worth holding on to. So, let's proceed then. That's your assignment for the next person that we're going to look at. If you really want to get beyond that, after that, we're going to read James Baldwin, The Fire, next time. But that's way in the future, hopefully. That's down the line. After we get through the Malcolm X movie that you didn't see the other day. That was, hopefully this machine has been fixed. I think this is fixed now?
I hope so. I think I can probably make sure before.
Nah, well, we're not there yet anyway, but that's kind of you looking at it. Don't worry. You got enough on your plate. Just worry about it. Look at section 9, line 4. All this visible universe comes from my invisible being. Now Krishna is the Lord of the world. He produces the whole universe even. He's like total perfection. More about sacrifice, line 27. Whatever you give, offer an adoration, let it be to me. Thus you will be free from the bonds of karma. I see, this is like a different lecture totally. There's nothing in that particular lecture that helps us at all, and I don't even think the same person wrote it. It's a lecture praising sacrifice. There's nothing, doesn't add anything to what we're talking about. 10. I don't see, there's some about previous gods, like 21. Among the sons of light, I am Vishnu, the Lord of the winds and storms. Doesn't help us much. The Vedas, the previous sacrificial literature. I am Indra, the chief of the gods. So he's all the gods he sacrificed. Of the trees, 26 I am the tree of life. So we're not learning anything here, just the Hindu god structure. I don't think there's much here that, is going to help us. I am the death, 34, that carries off all things. I am fame, speech, memory. I am the Birhat song of songs of the Vedas. I am the Gayatri of all measures. So this is really the religion of the upper class he's talking about here. Now, I don't know if it's going to help us. Chapter 11. 4. O God of yoga, the glory of thine own supreme being. Let's see, we have here, I think, what's his name came back? Sanjaya came back here to talk to the king again. Arjuna saw all the countless visions of wonder, line 10. Line 12, the light of 1,000 suns suddenly arose in the sky. The splendor might be compared to the radiance of the Supreme Spirit. And Arjuna saw in the radiance the whole universe, standing in vast unity in the body of the God. I don't know what he's talking about here, frankly. Except one interesting little point that you might find interesting. In this chapter here, I think it was this chapter 11, maybe you'll be able to find it. When the atom bomb project was being prepared by the U.S. government, there was a scientist, his name was J. Robert Oppenheimer. He was the head of it. He was a Berkeley professor in physics, and he was given the task to do the, whatever the project, what was it called, the Manhattan Project or whatever it was called, out in New Mexico. And when the bomb went off, and he was watching with all the spectators, he was one of these pseudo-intellectual types. He'd been reading the Bhagavad Gita at the time. And now he said, I think he quoted a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, now I am become death, the Lord of the world. I forget what verse he supposedly had quoted. Of course, that was from his translation of the Bhagavad Gita. I still haven't found it in this Bhagavad Gita, but I think it was this chapter that he was talking about.
11 and 12.
Huh?
11 and 12.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't look like what he is supposed to have said, but in any case, now I have become death, Lord of the world. I don't see it here, but 11, 12 we just read, and that sounds like what he was looking at, this, this image of 1,000 suns suddenly rising in the sky, like Noel just said, and the radiance of the whole universe. But there's another quote here. Here on 32. I have all powerful time which destroys all things, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there may have been a few of these crunched together in his mind from this section, but these are the quotations he applied to the atomic explosion when he saw it for the first time, because he was reading. That may encourage you to read this book. You're on his level, so you want to read the things he was reading. Yeah.
My interest is that it was 11, 12 also.
Yeah.
Can you hear this version?
Yeah, give us that version.
If the library.
That sounds like a better version. What's that? What's
I got
that?
it from the library.
Swami, what's the guy's name? Who did it? Whisper, what's his name? Murthy?
Murphy.
Yeah, go ahead.
If the
You
light
teach
of
here,
1,000
actually.
suns were to blaze all at once in the sky, it would be the splendor of that great being.
Yeah, that's basically similar to what we have here. But he says that's the verse, huh? Okay. Yeah.
I have a different translation.
Go ahead, give us
Same chapter,
Yeah.
32.
Oh, you're off 30.
I am time grow old, creating world destruction set in motion to annihilate the worlds.
Yeah. And what do you have for 12 in that chapter? Yes, good. I'm glad you give me these other translations. You would have helped me. Interrupt me with these translations because they give us more insight into possible, meanings of these things. Yeah.
So if the light of 1,000 suns were to rise in the sky at once, it would be like the light of the Great Spirit.
Yeah, that's similar to this. Well, anyway, that's, by the way, let's finish this one up here, and I think just a little bit of the next one, and then we'll go and we'll finish this up next time, and you can bring your Walt Whitman as well next time. Let's see what else he says here. And Arjuna saw in that radiance the whole universe in its variety, in its vast unity. Arjuna says, I see all the gods. I see God Brahma on his throne of lotus, and so on. This is the Hindu view of the whole Godhead. And then 25, which we spoke about, like the fire at the end of time, which burns until the last day. Have mercy on me, God of gods, supreme of the world. Krishna, 32. I am all powerful time, which destroys all things, and I have come here to slay these men. Even thou dost not fight. All the warriors facing thee shall die, even if you don't fight. Therefore, win your glory, conquer your armies, enjoy your kingdom, and through the fate of their karma, I have doomed them to die. So here is that same argument we heard at the beginning. Tremble not, fight, slay them, thou shalt conquer thine enemies in battle. So this is back to the original voice. These people are already doomed to die. I've doomed them all to die. You're just helping them along. You've got to fulfill your karma the same way they have to fulfill theirs. So go and fight. It doesn't convince me, but maybe it convinces somebody. Look at the last 52. Thou seen now face to face my form divine, for it's so hard for people to see. Even the gods in heaven long to see what you are seeing now. I wish it were true. I wish I were seeing something so splendid that even the gods of heaven were yearning to see. I suppose a believer could be convinced of that. And so not by the Vedas or ritual sacrifices. Again, it's similar to Christianity, not through the temple sacrifice and so on are you going to get there, but only by faith. And here it says only by love. I don't know. 54. What do you have for 54? Does it say only by love? What do you have in your book, 54?
Devotion.
Devotion, that's what I would have thought. Devotion sounds right. What do you have? Devotion, right? Yeah, whenever you see love here, substitute devotion. Let's just look at 12 and then we'll go home. 3. Those who worship the imperishable, the infinite, the transcendent, the omnipresent, the beyond all thought, the immutable, the never-changing, the ever-one, who have all the powers of their soul in harmony, and the same devotional mind, who find joy in the good of all things, they in truth, they reach my very self in truth. 6. But they for whom I am the supreme end, who surrender all their works to me, who with pure love meditate on me and adore me, these I soon deliver from the rebirth cycle of the ocean of death and the life in death, because they have set their heart in me. So this concentration on Brahman is going to deliver you not only from all the pains of this world, but from all the rebirth cycle as well. Bring this book a little bit, we'll finish it next time, we're close to the end. Bring your Whitman, thanks a lot for your patience.
You know where the counseling center is? In the library?